Peace, fam. This is your brother Usman. Um, I have some information here. This is going to be a short, concise video, but I think adding this information to your body of knowledge will be very crucial, especially for the amount of time put into the work. I was able to crank out the video in a very short, concise video. But again, it kind of belies the gravity of the information that this study uncovers. I just recently stopped drinking tea. I'm an avid tea enthusiast. That's been one of my mainstays for a while. I've been doing some research, however, and as a tea enthusiast, I had to come to terms with a very hard decision for me anyway. And the reason is as follows. I got a hold of an article by a Dr. Maywan Ho, who's since transitioned, peace be upon her. And through some follow-up research, I found out that tea has the highest levels of fluoride of any consumable plant. All right, so I know that sounds heavy and a little stretched, but let me go into the particulars. So this is an article written by Dr. Ho, and it was done in 2007. All right, and it reads as follows. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read the most important part of her analysis, and then I'll give you a little bit of background on Dr. Ho. Every author or every publisher whose information I use as a study base, I always do a little investigation to find out what their credentials are, and not necessarily traditional credentials. If it's someone in holistic medicine or Chinese medicine or a non-traditional practitioner, I still weigh what their publications are, what their articles are about, against their experience. And again, that experience doesn't necessarily have to be in traditional academia. So anyway, I don't want to belabor that. But as I said before, let me go over this important part of this article. All right. So again, this is by Dr. Maywan Ho, and she's speaking on the fluoride content in tea leaves. And she gives some background studies by some other doctors, and she herself works with a few reputable collaborators. All right. So the discovery of fluoride in tea stemmed from a woman diagnosed with skeletal fluorosis in 1998 by Dr. Michael P. White, a bone specialist in Washington University. The disease afflicts people in remote regions of Tibet, Mongolia, and China, in which fluoride replaces calcium in the bones. The bones become dense, weak, and brittle, and sometimes the ligaments harden and change bone structure. Now I want to note that there's been a very rapid increase in ligament afflictions and disc diseases in the United States. So further study will weigh out if this has anything to do with it. Now it does say the 52-year-old drank huge amounts of tea, 1 to 2 gallons of double strength instant tea every day of her adult life. Studies in Tibet and other areas where people drink large amounts of brick tea have shown that the beverage can be a significant source of fluoride. Brick tea is made from mature leaves, berries, and twigs of the tea plant, which often contain high levels of fluoride absorbed from the soil, and instant tea tends to be made from brick tea. Okay, so I'm going to go down here to the meat of it. Tea can become very high in fluoride because of tea leaves, especially older leaves accumulate more fluoride from pollution of soil and air than any other edible plant. Fluoride content in tea has risen dramatically over the past 20 years due to industry contamination. Recent analyses have revealed a fluoride content of 17.25 milligrams per tea bag or cup in black tea and 22 grams per tea bag or cup in green tea. Aluminum content was also high, over 8 milligrams, which is a lot for a tea bag. Normal steeping time is 5 minutes, and the longer a tea bag is steeped, the more fluoride and aluminum were released. After 10 minutes, fluoride and aluminum almost double. Now, as I said before, Dr. Wan Ho has a pretty extensive background as a geneticist, okay? And if you go to the Wikipedia site, which gives a short biology of her or biography of her, you'll see that she's a publisher, an author of over 10 books. All right. And again, she's since transitioned, but she has, again, very extensive background in her studies and in a lot of her dissertations about the effects of chemicals and environmental pollutants. So you can go and read that. But again, this is a very reputable source that I'm quoting here. Now, one of the corroborating pieces in her theory, again, from my studies, I don't normally, if ever, take my information from one source. I get a source and then I follow up on it with corroborating sources. Okay, so this is the Wikipedia, and I will go to that portion where they mention about the brick tea. Okay, but for right now, we're talking about the fluoride. Again, this is the Wikipedia article where they give a breakdown of fluoride, its chemical components, etc., where it's found, its occurrences, things of that nature. Okay, but when we get down here, we see that some plants concentrate fluoride from their environment more than others. All tea leaves contain fluoride. However, mature leaves contain as much as 10 to 20 times the fluoride levels of young leaves from the same plant. So it's safe to say that the longer the plant grows, the longer it stays in the ground, the more the more aluminum and fluoride it absorbs. Okay. Also, another source is this abstract from the National Center of Biotechnology Information, one of my favorite sources as well. And in the beginning of this abstract, it says here that tea plants take up a large quantity of aluminum and fluoride from acidic soils. It has been known that fluorosis can be developed for people who consume a large quantity of tea made from brick tea, a low-quality tea consisting mainly of old leaves in China. In addition, it has been claimed that Alzheimer's disease is linked with the Al content, Al is aluminum, in the brain. Therefore, the high Al content in tea, aluminum, especially brick tea, is also a concern. And lastly, in doing a lot of snooping around, I've come across the chart that states 500 foods or beverages, and it lists them in the order from the greatest amount of fluoride to the least amount of fluoride. So here we have whipped butter, okay, at 520. Again, out of 523 foods or items, we have butter with 1 microgram of fluoride. And that's almost nothing. That is, of course, a detectable amount, but it's way below the government minimum standard for allowance of fluoride. So we're at the bottom of the list at 523 with 1 microgram. So as we go to the top of the list, of this 500 of these 500 items, guess what is at the top, at the very tip top? Tea, prepared with tap water, which also may contain fluoride, at a whopping 74,582 micrograms. Now let's put that in perspective. We know that the tea per 8-ounce serving is 74,000 micrograms. We're going to round it off to an even 74,000. All right, putting that in perspective, 1 gram equals 1 million micrograms. All right, so what is 74,000 micrograms in comparison to 1 gram? Okay, a dime weighs about 2.25 grams. Let's just break it to a single digit. Okay, let's go 1/2 a dime weighs 1 gram. Okay, 1.2, but we're going to say 1 gram. So if you were to take 1 dime and divide it in half, that half a dime would be 1 million micrograms. Okay, now that 1 million micrograms, that half a dime, if you were to take that and you were to divide that dime, that half a dime, into 14 even parts, you would get about 71,000 micrograms. So you take a half a dime, you chop it into 14 little pieces. Each of those pieces, okay, would be 71,000 micrograms. So that kind of gives you a visual perspective of how much fluoride can be in an 8-ounce cup of tea. So again, that gives you a visual perspective. If you can imagine one of those small pieces ground up into like a powdery form and sprinkled throughout your cup of tea, that lets you know what you could be consuming in terms of fluoride. Now, when you add to the fact again that the teas have fluoride in them, and the water that the tea can be brewed in has fluoride or can have fluoride, it's safe to say that the level can get unacceptable pretty quickly over a short period of time. And I would be remiss if I didn't, as a practitioner, give this information. All right. Now, one thing that was a big relief for me was the following. Okay. Now, my mainstays are herbal teas. That's mostly what I drink. Now, I do from time to time drink green tea, especially when I'm at the end of my keto phase to push out the last efforts of my body to burn fat. But my mainstay is herbal teas. I have an echinacea blend, a ginseng blend, and a few other herbal blends I use regularly. Those are my mainstays. Ginger being my favorite. And since herbal teas are not true teas, they don't have the high fluoride content. And here's why. All right. I'm just going to read this short part. The tea industry often confusingly uses the term fruit tea to refer to what are in fact fruit-flavored black teas, not fruit teas. Herbal teas and fruit teas should not be confused with true teas. For example, black tea, green tea, white tea, yellow tea, and oolong tea, which are prepared from the cured leaves of the tea plant, as well as from decaffeinated tea in which the caffeine has been removed. Okay, herbal teas are used or are prepared from the fruit of the trees, from some of the roots, especially ginseng tea, that is the root, some of the flowers, but rarely the leaves. The difference or the differentiation between the true teas and what they call herbal teas is that the true teas are prepared exclusively from the leaves, and that is the part of the plant that collects the aluminum and the fluoride. So that's the difference. So again, that was a relief for me. And if you are a tea drinker and you don't already have a mainstay of herbal teas, that is what you need to switch over to. I'll be doing more research on this. This is some information that I just come across recently, but I'm in the state of doing a lot of research on this actually, because this was kind of disheartening for me. But as I gain information about this issue, what teas are acceptable, what herbal teas are acceptable, um, backed by data and research, I will release that information. All right, fam. So, till next time, peace.